final session, we're coming back, and then
Yes.
I guess the participants from the other breakout group is also joining back us now. So
Yes.
it's the time, according to what it was arranged, that the two co-chairs would give a very brief summary of what has been discussed. I think this is in the interest of the mutual exchange, because some of us didn't go to breakout group 2 and others didn't attend ours. So Art, are you ready to give a 5 minutes summary message from our discussion? I apologize to dump this right to you.
Fine.
And then we ask Dr. Saito to do the same for breakout group 2.
Sure. Well, I'm not going to go into all the detail. I've been making some notes to myself as I went along here. And let me just start, and I'll try and keep it to about 5 minutes. I'm watching the clock here carefully. So the first point is the great call is for transformative change. It's not for small issues. It's for a real change in society, and one that has to take place in global society, that has to take place within the next 10 years, even less than that, to 2030 roughly. And that is something that is critical in the sense that we haven't met our goals, as has been pointed out by several people. The Aichi targets were not met. In general, we see the world degrading in terms of this, and the link back to the thinking about livelihoods. I want to bring livelihoods into this very clearly. And the thing that struck me, I'm just going to just find where it was said here. It was by Joyita Gupta that, first of all, if basically I won't try and, oh yes, here it is. 3.2 billion people are adversely affected by land degradation. Now that's a remarkable figure. When we take that figure forward, that means that their livelihoods are degraded or lost. The second point I'd like to bring up, if we're thinking in this big picture, is that that there have been many achievements. We mustn't lose sight of a lot of those achievements. And this comes back right back to the first session, actually, when we were listening to the keynote speakers. But the question that has come through loud and clear from everybody, that we're lagging. We have the technical tools to a considerably greater extent. We have the knowledge base that is expanding so quickly, but somehow it's not affecting the action, which gets us into this question of our problems with government systems, legal systems, poly-governance approaches, how we bring the right actors together, as was pointed out by our first speaker. And this isn't happening. The question I would pose back to that is, how do we move away from COP20, COP15, but also on the climate side, COP26? How do we quickly, in the next 2 years, address some of those issues when for the last 20 years, we've not been able to do an adequate job? That's a terrifically difficult situation. And then that takes us into what was said by many people about the drivers. And how do we work on those drivers in a way that is different? I don't have the answer to that. I heard a lot about suggestions in that, but there's no simple answer. We know that much. I don't want to be negative on this, but these are very, very serious issues. Then the next point I would say that I really thought was very useful was this 7 points that came out through that. I'm going back because I think we have to say some things that relate to the keynote speeches. I took a lot away from the UNDP, Dr. Irvin's speech. And also, I'm going to just flip over to the 5 points that were made by our keynote economist, and how do we address those fundamental points that are in the analytical sphere that seem to be one of communication on the one hand, and the other of getting the academics in the economics field to basically take a different sort of a perspective, and one that is nature positive, and which is often used as the term nature positive. And then on the social science side, how do we bring in what we just heard from our last speaker, and that is the issue of taking a nexus approach that deals with things like resilience. I like that explanation of coping with shock. When you have a system where you have seeds in the ground, and you've got to figure that out, and the shocks of one sort or another happen. So these are very important ideas. The idea of thinking differently about cost benefit, delivering new ways of putting in costing, and that's where this work that's come out through Dasgupta in Cambridge University and others is so helpful. I'm just going to say one or two other things. I could say lots more about all of this, but I liked the idea of reinvigorate that was mentioned at one point in time. Reinvigoration is one way of looking at it. Another is vitalization, revitalization, which China is using in its rural areas. And these are some of the ways that we can insert the thinking about biodiversity, it seems to me, and particularly about ecosystems and ecosystem restoration. I'd like to say also the idea of that emerged, and it's a difficult one in some ways, of how do we become really, truly mutually supportive in our alignment of these issues. And the point that was raised that maybe we're also heading backwards into sovereignty-based approaches as opposed to those that are truly mutually supportive and require a great deal of cooperation. So there's a number of things there. And this is why I'm going to just finish on this particular note, that Li Lin's point about the global goal.
Your time is up. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm getting my own punishment here. Okay, but bending the curve and having the leaders take the lead, really truly take the lead, and the leaders pledge for nature. So I'll stop there. Sorry, that's a bit discombobulated.
Sorry to push you, so we're only have a few minutes. Thank you, Art. We can continue summarize those later on. Now I want to give the floor to our breakout group 2 chair, Dr. Saito, to summarize their group's discussion.
So we have we prepared 3 key questions, as you see. They're focusing on the renewable energy transition, how it affects on the biodiversity conservation. So main topic is the relationship between how to maximize synergy between the renewable energy expansion and biodiversity conservation or restoration, and how to avoid the trade-off between the two. We have the 3 speakers, as you see. So first, the Dr. Alexander Gasparatos introduced his review works, his extensive review work on the relationship between the biodiversity and renewable energy expansion by reviewing more than 500 literatures. And also the Dr. Amanda Ali focused on the digital innovation in woody biomass supply chain in Japan, focusing on the one very interesting case study in Japan. And also the third speaker, the Dr. Siddharth Sarin, introduced his work on relating the environmental governance and the energy infrastructure. And I took some of the take-out message from 3 presentations. First one, the renewable energy can create context-specific trade-offs, considering that the renewable energy installation, ancillary infrastructure, upstream, downstream activities could affect biodiversity through multiple mechanisms. And it is important to delineate and conceptualize trade-off between biodiversity and renewable energy in a more comprehensive manner. The need for large-scale modeling exercise, which can capture comprehensive environmental impact and assessment in a spatially and temporally explicit manner. Third one is we need to reduce and eliminate misalignment between policies on renewable energy and expansion of the biodiversity conservation, which are often discussed separately by IPCC and IPBES or the other biodiversity-related communities. And digital technology can facilitate several mechanisms such as information sharing, transparency, interconnectivity, and value maximization and optimization, which can also contribute to minimize the trade-off between biodiversity and renewable energy expansion. Last one taken from the Dr. Sides, the presentation, meeting biodiversity energy transition target require combined attention to energy infrastructure transition, changing land use, situated social identities, which requires cross-sectoral transition, not only the agriculture sector, not only the forestry sector. We need to apply to the transdisciplinary approach and the cross-sector transition. So, and then after the three presentation, Professor Takeuchi, the president of IGS, and also the professor of University of Tokyo, and also the editor-in-chief of the Sustainable Science Journal, he also gave three comments on the maximize synergy and minimize trade-off between renewable energy and biodiversity conservation is a very important agenda for us, both in the IPCC and also the IPBES and the CBD. And we need to fill the gap between renewable energy and biodiversity in both developing and developing countries. So considering the relationship between global south and the global north, and also the urban rural areas. So thank you very much. So this is a summary of the breakout group 2.
Thank you very much, Professor Saito. With that, we come into the conclusion part. So I think I'm mindful of timing. We run over time. So I have no ability. I'm not going to intend to summarize what has been summarized already by our chairs and also speakers. And because for the plenary, everybody was there. So I think for sure we have learned a lot, but we also have a lot of takeaway messages after this discussion. So, but I wanted to, first of all, like to express the appreciation to thank all the speakers for your contribution to the sessions, and thank all the participants for patiently being with us. I'm noting that we still have 44 participants with us now. So this is really a great kind of setting. Thank you. And I also wanted to remind you that all the unanswered questions will be transferred to the forum website. We really encourage our speakers and the panelists to look at and respond to them if you can. And please feel free to go and to continue the conversations there. And we will keep this virtual space open for 3 days, as we said at the very beginning, 3 working days after the session. So in our case, that virtual space on the forum website will remain open until 22nd of April, and all presentations will be made available, and the YouTube video will be accessible as well. And I wanted to take this opportunity to notify that our next session of this virtual series is on the 21st of April, which is a Wednesday, and starting from 10 a.m. Montreal time. The title of that session is Links Between Loss of Biodiversity, Climate Change, and the Zoonotic Diseases. With that, I would like to thank everyone again for attendance and wish you a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. And thank you very much, and goodbye. So before I close this, do the Claudia have any housekeeping or anything that you wanted to say to this group?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to mention that the videos and the recordings of the previous sessions are also available on the conference website. So please feel free to visit that website and to share the link widely if you are interested to look again at those sessions, or if you want to share it with other colleagues. Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday.
Thank you. Bye.